Welcome to a very special episode of Altitude Advantage. I'm your team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. This is our lead writer, Aric DiLalla, and we're in a different area. Beautiful scenery behind us.
I hope people are watching on YouTube because this is really,
Yeah.
you're getting a lot for the free 99 at the podcast cost.
We are in West Virginia. You excited?
Which
I
we've
feel like-
learned as a state,
I feel like we're
right?
What?
Well, last week we were talking about Virginia.
Oh, yeah, but see, I got it right this time because Virginia, we're in West Virginia, which
You're dialed in. We're at the
I'm
lovely
dialed in.
Greenbrier Resort. And Altitude Advantage has hit the road.
yeah, it's our first one on the road. Really excited. We're gonna be here all week, bringing you some in-depth coverage. And obviously, we're all happy here because we just got back from a big win on the road. The Broncos defeated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was a really big win for this team. And actually, one, they were undefeated, 2-0, but still undefeated. And they're actually 5-1 on the road all time against the Buccaneers, which I think is a nice little added extra to the win.
Yeah, I mean, I was ready to talk about, like, are you going to go do archery after this? Are you going to paint a gnome? Are you going to go play some golf?
So far,
That's what I was.
Look, so far I've explored the stairs, which has been a lot. And I'm from California. We have palm trees. We don't have trees. These leaves are changing colors.
It's beautiful.
It's interesting. It's new.
So you're used to California. This is not,
Oh.
not California.
Well, I'm used to having the same season all year long, and now I'm being exposed to many different things, including the leaves changing color, which I realized was a thing also. People were very excited about that.
In Colorado, the leaves changing is a big deal. You go up, you see the aspen trees. It's lovely. I will say, this has been in the works for a long time, this trip,
Okay.
and it's worked so far. The
Yeah.
Broncos headed out to Tampa. Like you said, they got the big win,
Yep.
and now we're going to spend the week here.
Painting gnomes.
Painting gnomes. And on Thursday, I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about the week, because
Yeah.
at that point, we'll have had time to, maybe do some horseback riding. There's a lot of activities here. Archery. But you're
There's
right.
zip lining too, I think.
There's golf. but for now, you're right. We should talk about this win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because
Yeah.
it was a big win.
I feel like we should have iced tea for this podcast. We missed out.
I legitimately have some sweet tea right here, but it's mine.
Let's
Sorry.
make the note that he has some sweet tea.
Yeah, as a North Carolina native, I took advantage of being back in the area and got some sweet tea.
Okay.
We're on the porch. It's a relaxed Monday podcast. We won.
It is.
The Broncos got their first win of the season.
Yeah.
And
Oh, it's Dub Monday. Monday Dub.
Dub Day.
Dub Day.
You're still learning. It's your first
Sorry.
one. Hey,
it
congrats.
is my first one.
Shout out you.
Shout out to me. Shout out to me.
But in all seriousness, a big win. I
Yeah.
think it's not being dramatic to say that in a lot of ways it's season, I don't know if season saving is too much, but certainly season changing.
Yeah.
Because the difference between being 1-2 and 0-3 is drastic. And I know it's just one game, and people might say, well, the difference between 0-3 and 1-2 is one game. But no, there is a big difference in terms of how it feels. You're now, if you're able to beat the Jets this weekend, get back to 500.
Yeah.
If you look at it's beyond early, but like if you look at the teams around the AFC, the Dolphins are currently the 7th seed with a 1-2 record, and so you've made up ground here in the early part of the season. And I think maybe even more importantly, Elisa, is you've proven, I think externally matters, right? And we talked about that a little bit yesterday, but you've proven to yourself, I think, that you're capable of playing really good football. And it wasn't, I liked what Sean Payton said after the game, it wasn't perfect, it wasn't our best game, but it was good enough, and it was certainly their best performance of this season, best performance probably in a few years. If you look at the 19-point win, largest win since they beat Detroit back in 2021.
Wow.
Largest road win. I tweeted it, now I forgot it. That's kind of sad.
It's all right. It's your first day.
My first day on the job. But biggest win against a team with a winning record since 2017. And largest road win since a 2018 win over the Cardinals. So it's not like this is just a kind of run-of-the-mill victory. This was a good Tampa team. They were missing some guys on defense, and we'll talk more in depth about the offensive and defensive performances, but just all around, it really came together. There was a time there near the end of the first half where the Broncos, Javonte Williams fumbles, there was a chance they were going to give up momentum, and they struck right back, got a field goal. Defense comes out in the second half, gets a stop. That to me was like the game-changing part of this football game.
Yeah.
And Sean Payton said we punched back.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that in Seattle. And so you saw a lot of growth. You got to win. And we're in West Virginia, and we're feeling good.
We are feeling good. And I will say that Sean Payton and a lot of the guys, especially on the defensive side, kept hindering at that, of the fact of we need to be able to get back the momentum the second we feel like we're losing it, or the second something happens. We need to be able to snatch it back quickly. And to your point, they were able to do that a few times in the game to really kind of keep Tampa Bay off balance. Even when they gave up their only touchdown of the game to Chris Godwin, they didn't let that snowball into something else. And I think that was a really big testament to their resilience that they've kind of learned over the last only 3 weeks into the season.
Yeah, and let's compare it right to what happened in Seattle, right? Which is that the Broncos are up at halftime, and then you allow a big drive, offense struggles, they go score again, and before you know it, you've allowed 17 unanswered points, and you do get a late touchdown, you have a chance to get a stop and maybe get one more crack at it. But as Sean Payton said, as a lot of guys said after the game, the momentum got away from him for too long. And I was sitting up in the press box thinking, when Javonte fumbles, it kind of unfortunately lets Tampa back into the game a little bit.
Right.
It's 17-0 at that point. The Broncos are driving. They're in Tampa territory.
Yeah.
And you think even if you score just a field goal here, you're up 20-0, essentially a 3-touchdown lead, and you feel like you're in really good shape. A turnover gives Tampa the ball with good field position. Bucky Irving, who had a really nice game as Tampa's running back, hits a little counter right up the middle and then takes off for 30, 40 yards. And before you know it, the Bucs are down in the red zone. Like you mentioned, Chris Godwin gets a touchdown catch. It was really kind of the only big play, big drive Tampa had. Yeah. And I'm sitting there, and I wouldn't say I was worried, but I was like, this game is still not out of reach. Yeah. Even though it was just 17-0. Yeah. The lead is now down to 10 points. You think, okay, well, if Denver doesn't score on this drive, Tampa gets the ball back right after halftime. And I tweeted out, hey, this is big from a points perspective, a turning point in this game, because say the Broncos punt it away, Tampa comes out after halftime and scores a touchdown. Now all of a sudden it's 17-14, and you're like, it's a whole new ball game. Right. And so the fact that, that was one of Bo's better drives of the game, to go down there, get 3 points, you come out of halftime, Tampa is actually moving the ball really well, and John Franklin Myers gets a sack. That to me was an incredibly critical point of this game, and is the reason the Broncos won, even more so than the early 14-0 lead. The fact that they, like we said, they punched back, and then they kind of choked Tampa out with that long drive. So, like you mentioned, that was a critical point in the game, and the Broncos responded in a way that I don't know if they would have the same way 2 weeks ago.
That's true, and that's 7 sacks on Baker Mayfield, including an interception from Brandon Jones. 2 of those sacks came from a new guy that was just called up on Wednesday, Jondre Tillman. He gets promoted to the active roster, and he not just 2 sacks, called it a dream come true to be able to get that in the locker room. Media surrounding him, and his teammates are just like, Till. They're hyping him up as he's getting, his recognition for what he did on the field. But to have a guy like that come in after basically playing a season, coming into playing a new season, because he was with the USFL, I believe. And what does it mean to have a teammate to come in, learn it, and just kind of hit the ground running?
Yeah,
especially in a game like this.
I'll say it. I was wrong yesterday. I accidentally said CFL. My apologies to Jondre Tillman.
You know what? We're even now, because I said Dub Monday, so we're even now.
You said CFL?
No, I said Dub Monday, which was wrong.
Oh,
see,
got
Dub
it.
Day.
You said
see?
I got it.
Now me and Aric are
I'll take that.
tied.
We're even. 1-1. We're counting we got
the podcast
a big board off screen that's counting.
The podcast is still early on, so. But yeah, so what does it mean? What does it mean to have a guy like that come in and make an impact in a game like this where they needed to win?
Yeah, well, they needed to win. They needed somebody to step up. With Baron Browning on IR, obviously have Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito, Jonah Ellis has come along strong, but you need that fourth guy. Yeah. And like you mentioned, he's a guy that's just been looking for a chance. The USFL was a really strong player there. I think, if the people that were dialed in kind of over the summer when the Broncos made this signing, people were excited about this and thought, hey, this guy's got some some potential, some burst to work with, and he showed it on Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Just one of those really cool stories. I mean, every now and again, you see a guy that's just like truly happy to be there and like get that opportunity. That's what it was for Dondre Tillman yesterday after the game. And like you said, all his teammates were just super supportive and there for him. But the pressure came from everywhere. I mean, 7 sacks, like you said, 6 different guys had a sack of Baker Mayfield. I believe every drive of the second half, Baker was either sacked or pressured.
Yeah.
And a lot of those sacks, I mentioned the John Franklin Myers one. Tillman had another where the Bucs are starting to move the ball, and then instead of 2nd and 10 or 3rd and 5 or whatever it might be, they're sitting there in 3rd and 18. And Todd Bowles was asked about it after the game, like, why didn't you go hurry up? Why didn't you push it? And he was like, listen, we couldn't get to manageable second downs, and so we couldn't go hurry up, and we couldn't push the tempo. I mean, the pressure came from everywhere. You saw Vance Joseph with some exotic looks. Baker Mayfield was talking after the game that you had defensive ends dropping into coverage, and so Cade Otton, the Buccaneers tight end, was running a few choice option routes where he's supposed to read a guy, but because he's not used to reading that guy, he kind of went the wrong way on his route. And so certainly for the Buccaneers offensive line and protection-wise, it caused some problems. Vance Joseph, as we mentioned in the lead-up to this game, has historically had success against Baker Mayfield. But I think that Vance Joseph deserves his flowers on this Monday as we talk about this win, because they did not give up a lot. Certainly those 2 dynamic receivers that we talked all week about and how good they are, and they're still really good. Like, this performance doesn't change that, but the Broncos nearly shut them down.
Completely.
They forced Baker to throw short a lot to either the running back, the tight end, and then, like we mentioned, just the all-day pressure, especially in the second half as Tampa's trying to make a comeback, was really impressive. And Baker did say also after the game, hey, listen, when we're down 17-0, now you can't run the ball the way you want to run the ball, and so you're going to have to throw the football like this. That allows defense to kind of pin their ears back and go. And it was just a complete performance. And I was happy, Elisa, to see that in those final few minutes, you don't have a garbage time touchdown. And it doesn't end. I know in the grand scheme of things, like a win is a win, but like this defense played well, and I was glad that Tampa didn't, just get an easy touchdown there late, because this was a
they kept the pressure. Yeah, they kept the pressure the whole time. And just looking at the defensive possession, the first 4 possessions was a punt, an interception, a punt, and a turnover on downs. First 4 possessions of the first half. In the second half, it was a punt, a turnover on downs, and a fumble. So just the way that they were able to consistently keep them off balance. And looking at Mike Evans' numbers, 3 targets, 2 receptions, 17 yards. Mike Evans, which we had talked about, was the leading receiver for the Buccaneers in 2023.
10 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons.
Exactly. Like he's not someone.
Future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's not a guy that has 17 yards in a game. That's a guy that 17 yards on like a first pass or something.
And only one of those came against Surtain, who again wasn't every snap, but it was most snaps that he was over there.
Yeah.
This is a long stretch of talented receivers. Sean Payton talked about that after the game, that he actually put together cut-ups of Marshawn Lattimore from New Orleans, of him covering Mike Evans, because Lattimore always played well.
Yeah.
Sean joked that he was going to propose a trade to get Lattimore out here for just a week to play against Evans. I think it's a good thing they didn't make the trade, because Surtain played well again. I mean, that's just kind of what you come to expect. Riley Moss on the other side is playing really good football. I know he's still giving up some catches. That's going to happen when you're targeted as much as he is.
Yes.
He's facing a lot of targets because people are staying away from Pat Surtain. We talked about that going into the game. I mean, pretty much everything we said was going to happen and previewed, like, maybe people should listen. I don't know. But Riley Moss just, even on that touchdown, really good coverage. He's right there.
Yeah, and Chris Godwin is a good receiver. So it's,
one of the top receivers.
Exactly. And like looking at his numbers, 9 targets, 6 receptions for 53 yards.
And you're going to live with that's not going to beat you.
Right.
6 receptions for 53 yards from Chris Godwin and a touchdown, obviously. That's not going to beat you. He posted 100 yards just a week ago.
Yeah.
So to hold those guys to those numbers was really impressive. Jaquan McMillan in the slot. I mean, that's a guy who he got a lot of work against Chris Godwin too. He's one of the most underrated players on this defense and continues to play really well. The Broncos should be really happy they have him there on their defense. But yeah, we mentioned that the 7 sacks, the pressure just kept coming over and over and over. It was nice to see a bunch of different guys get in on the action. And this is a Bucs offense, Elisa, that 2 weeks ago put up, I think, 38 in their win over Washington.
Yeah.
They beat
come back.
Detroit,
Yep.
a good Detroit
really
team
good defense,
on the road. And, Baker after the game said, listen, I don't want to say that our focus wasn't there, because he said during the week it felt the same as it did any other week. But he did admit they came out, he thought it felt a little bit flat. But part of that is when the offense comes out and throws it kind of right down the field and it scores an opening touchdown and then you throw a pick, like they take, you mentioned this, you take the crowd out of it, you take the other team out of it, you get them to start doubting. You mentioned that 4th down in the first half. That was, the Bucs basically had to go for it there, already down 17-0, and it was the second quarter. And so, yes, maybe the Bucs feel like they came out flat, but part of that is what Denver did to them in terms of the aggression early on offense, the turnover on defense. We shouldn't forget to mention Brandon Jones.
Yep.
Huge
interception.
Huge interception. And I liked what he said Monday, that was all film study.
Yeah.
He said this defense knew Baker likes to push the ball down the field against cover 2. He trusts his arm strength. And then, Brandon Jones says, I see Mike Evans in this bunch formation. I see him release vertically. I know what route he's running. I take off before the ball's even thrown. That's great to hear if you're a fan that, hey, you've got a guy back there, and obviously big shoes to fill for Justin Simmons.
Right.
He had another interception of Patrick Mahomes last night on Sunday Night Football. He makes a living picking off Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
But here's a guy that's stepping in for him, and he uses film study to his advantage, able to get a big-time interception, because even if they force a punt there, then you've got to go all the way down the field, and who knows if if you're up 10-0, maybe you still score a touchdown. But I think the quick strike of a pick almost all the way to the end zone, and then that score with Jaleel. I mean, do you want to stand up and demonstrate what Jaleel did? No,
I
okay.
don't.
I would hurt myself if I tried to do that. But he scores there, and when it's 14-0, just like that, I think, like I said, it takes the wind out of your sails as an opponent, and so. Sails! I didn't even mean to do that. That was good.
That was good. That was good.
That's like +5.
No, they definitely left that in a shipwreck. But look, for Tillman, he became actually the first Bronco since at least 1970 and the first player in the NFL since Detroit linebacker James Houston in 2022 to have at least 2 sacks in his NFL debut. So we have to give him his flowers.
Tyler
as
Gorse
well.
give you that?
And I can't reveal my sources.
I got one more on him.
What you
Fourth
got?
undrafted player ever to have 2 sacks in his debut.
See, we just dropping bars on the podcast.
Yeah, it went from 7 to 4.
I mean, it's one of those things that you like. Again, it's a good story, but it's also when it's more than that. It's also like when he's able to come out, and he gave a lot of credit to his team for, he's adjusting from a different league. I mean, football is football, but he did talk about in postgame that he was a little, anxious and worried. And said that the guys are just like, look, like, you know how to do this. You're here for a reason, and we believe that you are going to make an impact in this game. And he said that he really internalized all that confidence that his guys gave him, and so when he got on the field, he just locked in, and obviously results came from that. But I think that also shows into what this team has been able to do, because you tell a lot about a team's character during losses. And I think we saw a lot of resiliency from this team, a lot of just, they were worried, but they weren't stressed. They were kind of just like, okay, like, we're worried about certain things, but it's not because we don't think we can't overcome them. And they've talked a lot about, if we can just play our game, we will see good things happen. And you can say that, but when you actually go on the field and you showcase what those good things are, and you see everything clicking, you're seeing this entire team shoot on all cylinders, this team is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think even one win can just change your perspective on what a team can be, what it can do. Obviously, this was a pretty high ceiling, and I think, or this suggests a pretty high ceiling, and I think defensively they've been playing this way all year, with maybe the exception of the third quarter against the Seahawks.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a defense that's in the top 5 of yards allowed. Certainly from a scoring defense perspective, has done a really nice job as well. And we said this, I think, maybe it was Thursday. The way this defense is playing, if the offense can just get it going a little bit,
Yeah.
they're going to be in good shape, and they're going to be able to win some of these football games.
Yeah.
And then you look at Seattle, 3-0, Pittsburgh, 3-0, just beat what looks like a good Chargers team. And I know that Justin Herbert went out, and Rashawn Slater went out, and some of those guys were injured in that game. But you've now got your 2 losses are to 3-0 teams. You just beat a 2-0 team. You've shown that each week, and I don't think progress is always going to be linear with Bo in particular, and we'll talk a lot about Bo, but but so far it's been linear, right? Like week 1 to week 2, he was better. Week 2 to week 3, he was a lot better. And I mean, some of the ability to just stay in the pocket and deliver throws to Cortland Sutton, the throw to Josh Reynolds early in the game was nice. Sorry, no, I'm jumping to Bo. I'll stop on the Bo for now. But I do think after this win, maybe your perception changes of what's possible. And I think it shows that when Sean Payton in the preseason said young and hungry can be dangerous, and like, let's prove some people wrong, this is the type of performance he was talking about.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I really kind of caught on, especially with the defense, is they're so keen on, like, they just don't want anyone to score, right? So, and they've been keeping teams relatively low scoring. But even after the game yesterday, Riley Moss talked about that touchdown on Chris Godwin, and he was very adamant. He's like, yeah, it's something we're going to work on practice this week so this doesn't happen again. Obviously, it's the NFL. Touchdowns are going to happen from the opposing team, but it's that hunger to be like, we don't want to give up any points. And I think that's the right mentality to go into. But these guys are really focused in on making sure that they make this as hard as possible for these teams to get into the end zone.
Yeah, and as a corner in particular, I think you need that mindset, right? Of like, my guy's not going to score on me. I'm going to make a play.
Yeah.
You know, if they do score on you, whatever, move on to the next one. Like, Riley Moss has impressed me in that way. I think where the defense took a step forward from last week was enforcing the turnovers. Obviously, weren't able to get one a week ago. 2 this week, right? The interception and the forced fumble.
Yep.
Brandon
Which Riley
Jones,
was a big
Riley,
part of that too.
He hit Otten pretty good. Brandon Jones was able to pick it up. Both of those returns, he's kind of like weaving around. He said he was like a kid on the playground instead of just going straight.
Yeah.
The fumble, it looked like when he dodged Baker, if he just went straight, he's in the end zone, and he kind of went right. And you're like, go straight.
He said a couple of guys let him hear it after the game.
Yeah. So, but a key there is like what Zach Allen told you a few weeks ago. Last year, it took the takeaways to play good defense.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they were giving up a lot of yards. It was kind of bend but don't break. They needed the takeaways to win. If the offense plays this way, like, let's pretend that yesterday happens and there's neither of those 2 takeaways happen. The Broncos still win that football game because the down in and down out defense was just really spectacular, and they put pressure on Baker Mayfield. They made plays against receivers. So it's then the combination of when you can play good defense and you don't need the takeaways, but the takeaways elevate the performance, or maybe it is a game where the offense isn't playing quite as well. You know, the takeaways can change the game. So it was nice to see the takeaways, but it also was nice that it didn't feel like you needed those to win the football game.
Yeah, I think another good point was the way that this team, like you said, they did take away the running game from the Bucs, but then they couldn't, even when momentum started to shift, they could not get that running game going on their side. They actually kept Tampa Bay's rushing to under 100 yards for them, despite, you know, just having different guys trying to attack them in different ways. And switching to our offense, because I think the Broncos offense is something that we really have to touch on. Before we get into Bo and what he was able to do, especially in that first quarter, first let's talk about how Alex Palczewski was able to fill those big shoes going into this game.
I'm sitting here patiently, like, waiting to talk about Bo Nix.
Now I'm making you wait.
And you're like, let's talk about the offensive line.
Wait, yes, because they mad.
Kidding.
They're mad.
I know. Yeah.
No, Alex Palczewski has some big shoes to fill this week.
Yeah, Alex Palczewski coming in for Mike McGlinchey, making his first career start. Obviously a guy that played a lot of college football.
Yeah.
I think 65 starts in college. I mean, it's unheard of, obviously. I thought he played really well. And granted, like, the Bucs are not a team this year that have been super successful with edge pressure. The sack numbers aren't super high. Vita Vea not playing is helpful. Obviously, that's more of an inside issue rather than a tackle issue. But I did see that Luke Wattenberg, Ben Powers, and Quinn Miners did not allow a single pressure at all. So not having Vita Vea there was part of that. But Palczewski, I think the fact that you just didn't hear his name very much is a good sign for a guy making his first start. You know, he's not allowing a sack, not getting called for penalties. And this offensive line gave Bo Nix time to make plays. They blocked better in the run game, I thought. Certainly in the second half, the Broncos' run game got going. That's the biggest thing we'll talk about is how to pronounce formerly Tyler Beatty, now Tyler Baday's last name. Twitter's like on fire over this. They're telling all these journalists who are like, it's Tyler Baday. They're like, you guys are morons. It's Beatty. Here's a video from 6 years ago of him saying it's Beatty. Our friend Brady King from Broncos Weekend she was wading in there because she was like, here's a video of him just formerly saying it's Beatty, now it's Baday. So it's Baday.
We've all had a Baday, so it's just rough out here. Trying to figure out the pronunciations of these names.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. We got Dulcich down. We got Baday down. We're rolling.
Palczewski, I mean,
Palczewski.
Come at me. I'm just saying. But yes, you are correct. They kept Bo. He had 0 interceptions and he had 0 sacks in the game.
Yeah, and it still wasn't perfect from an interception. Like he did not throw an interception, you're right. But there were a couple that were in harm's way, and I think that the Broncos probably got away with a couple, specifically on a couple passes that were tipped at the line of scrimmage. You want to continue to make sure that you eliminate that as much as possible. But the Buccaneers only had 2 quarterback hits all game. I mean, that's really where it's not just the sacks, but like, can you avoid taking the big hit that's going to potentially put you in harm's way? And he did that. You saw Bo duck under an attempted sack and sprint for 22 yards, and he gets up and he's motioning for the first down. He's fired up. So what have we heard a lot from Sean Payton? It's that you've got to play well around Bo Nix, and then that puts him in position to succeed. And I thought on Sunday, the Broncos certainly played well around him. Cortland Sutton made some great catches. You mentioned Palczewski, the interior of the offensive line. All really stood up and protected Bo Nix, gave him time to throw. Todd Bowles mentioned after the game, a lot of these passes were just out so quick we couldn't get to him. So that's a credit to the play calling. It's a credit to Bo for finding his guy and getting rid of it. Josh Reynolds, when I watched the 30-something yarder on the first drive, I tweeted out like, that's about as easy a pitch and catch as you're going to see in the NFL because Josh Reynolds had like 4 steps on the guy right away, and I deleted it because I was like, when I went back and watched it, the way that Bo kind of layered that throw over the defender and dropped it right where it needed to be for Reynolds to then keep going, it was an impressive throw, and sorry Bo, it was really good. I didn't mean to diminish the impressiveness of that throw, but. Bo on the first drive, 4 of 4, 70 yards, runs for a touchdown.
That had Twitter on fire.
Yeah. That's a good start. You can't do much better than that. In the first half, 5 incompletions. That's it. I mean, he had a stretch there where it was like 6 or 7 completions in a row, just boom, boom, boom. The 2-minute drill, which we mentioned. I believe he was 5 of 5 to start on that 2-minute drill. And again, you had Cortland Sutton playing well around him. It wasn't like a huge yardage game for Sutton, but I think he had 6, 7 catches. He was just involved in a way that I think you want your number 1 receiver to be involved. And as Sean Payton put it after the game, if we paint this picture around Bo and do what we're supposed to do, this guy's going to really be something. And I think to hear Sean Payton say, a coach as good as Sean Payton, who's worked with as many quarterbacks as he has, to say this guy's going to really be something, that kind of stood out as like a whoa. And would also like to point out that maybe it's another good reminder that people should stop freaking out after 2 games, because like the Twitter sky was falling.
Yeah.
People were acting like, oh, what should the Broncos do in the draft next year to address the quarterback position?
Next
and it was
year?
like, I know. And it was like,
That's crazy.
man, everybody talks about it's going to take some time for a rookie to figure this out. And it, again, progress may not be linear. There's going to be more moments when
Right.
he struggles. A Robert Saleh defense is going to be tough to go against this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah,
But he's clearly making strides, and all it took was 3 weeks. I mean, hopefully people just took a deep breath and they can calm down a little bit.
Simmer down. Simmer
That's
down.
my wish here for our week in West Virginia, is for people to just chill out.
Well, we're pretty chilled out. This is the vibe that you should have, especially after a big win like this. Like you said, Bo just having a day was really impressive. I think for me, what kind of really stood out was he drove down the field very quickly. They scored fast, but I think also the ability to stretch out plays. I know that obviously everybody wants touchdowns, but what I found impressive was, I believe it was in the third quarter, they had a 15-play, 69-yard drive. They came in with 3 points, right? But they took off 8 minutes from the clock. Like you're putting a lot of pressure on Tampa to come out there, especially when it's hard, when the defense is playing the way they're playing. So I think the ability to stretch out those kind of stretches in the game, I think is really key for him too.
That was like a grown man drive.
Yeah.
Where they just like exerted their will over Tampa, and it was interesting the way they did it. I don't have the Microsoft service in front of me, but
Come prepared next time.
they passed the ball a lot on that
Yeah.
drive, which is interesting because normally on that type of drive you see like 4-yard gain, 6-yard gain on the ground, 7-yard, like you're running it and they can't stop you.
Yeah.
The fact that they kind of used just this precision passing attack, worked some screens in there, picked up some big third down conversions. That was, and again, it didn't end in a touchdown, right?
Right.
But it was as impressive a drive as I've seen in a while, just in terms of
Time management.
well, and like what do you need? What do you need in this moment? Because what you need from your offense is not always the same. Sean Payton talked about that after the game. We wanted to start fast and attack, and they did that through the air, deep pass. Bo ends up running it in the end zone, kind of on this keeper where there's nobody near him. Nobody's within 35 feet of him. But then on this other drive in the third quarter that stretched into the fourth quarter, it was like, we don't need to take shots. We need to take time off the clock.
Yeah.
We need to put this game away. And so it's running time off. I think it was 15 plays, like you mentioned, almost 8 minutes. That drive will probably fade from memory a little bit in terms of like when you think of the win in Tampa, you'll probably think of that first touchdown. You'll think of Brandon Jones' interception.
Yeah.
You might think of Bo's like wild run where he, he's
It's a little Jack Sparrow-ish, we'll say.
oh, another pirate reference. Okay. But like that drive to me was a really good indication of what the Broncos can do in the future when they need to work time off the clock, be methodical, dominate time of possession. Because even with the field goal, the Bucs got the ball back after that.
Yeah.
They were down 16, and now you've got less than 15 minutes to go. It was at that point that I was like, this is done.
Yeah.
And it's hypothetically possible they could have gone, scored a 2-point conversion, got to stop, gone, scored a 2-point conversion. But you just, at that point, the odds are so low, especially the way that
The
Denver
game
had been
was
playing
going.
all day, is that drive to me was like nice little cherry on top of the offensive performance.
Yeah, a lot of the guys after the game were they wanted to win. They were excited for the win. The locker room was very cheerful and very happy. And I think for them, it was one of those things where it's like everyone talked about setting the tone and how the tone can be set on this road trip and how they can start to change their narrative. I remember Alex Singleton said, like, we'll see where we are when we come back. And now like you said, you're going into another road game against the Jets. Again, we'll talk way more in depth about that matchup on the next podcast. But it's almost like, but look what we just did against this team, against this defense, and look, you can say and argue, well, they didn't have this, they didn't have that. Not every team can take advantage when the opposing team has key guys out.
And the Broncos had guys out too. Michael
Yeah.
Bunchy's on IR, Baron Browning's on IR. I'm sure I'm missing people off the top of my head, but like,
Yeah, Devon Valade, a few people that weren't playing got hurt.
yeah, and Valey obviously he was off the injury report, so may have been more of a matchup-driven thing. But Skinner on special teams. I mean, there were guys that are either
Missing,
on
yeah.
IR or ruled out for the game that the Broncos didn't have available. So, but you're right. You still got to go out there and do it, and especially in this league where we mentioned coming into the game, 22 of 32 games, is that right?
Yes,
Had been decided
about
by
that.
8 points or fewer. The Broncos just took it to them.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for the fumble there, it's possible they shut him out or that this is not even close at all.
Yeah.
And it ends up being I know we're still getting into the swing of the season.
Yeah.
You watch a college football game where, like, some of these scores are just absurd, right? But, like, generally,
Stressful.
10-point wins, 14-point wins,
Yeah.
they don't happen all that much
Yeah.
in the NFL. Every game is designed to be close. The league is designed to be close. Everyone's talented. And so when you do have a complete performance like this where you win by almost 20 points, I do think it's worth, and I mentioned at the top of the show, like how long it's been
Yeah.
since Denver's done those things.
Yeah.
Part of that is because they've struggled in recent years, but also, like, it just doesn't happen all that much. Even last year, you won 8 games, the most games you've won since 2016, and didn't win a game by this many points. And
Yeah.
so that is impressive. That does stand out. I think you're right that Sean Payton mentions a lot, like, confidence is born of demonstrated ability. And yesterday was one of those times where the Broncos, I think, demonstrated themselves what they're capable of doing. And, like, hey, the defense can play at this level against 2 elite wide receivers. It used to be, if you played a team with 2 or 3 really strong receivers, you're in trouble. I think
Yeah.
last year against the Raiders to start the year, right? Like, remember what Jacoby Myers did? Like, to me, I don't think Riley Moss lets that happen if they play again. And we'll see in a few weeks, obviously. But
Right.
this is just a team on all levels that I think got more confident, found out something about themselves, and can really use this moving forward. And like you said, now you got to go do it again because big difference between 1-3 and 2-2.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't. Either way, I think this win changes just kind of the complexion of the season and what's possible moving forward, and kind of shows this is building in the right direction. But obviously, you want the next level of success in the NFL is, can you stack them and can you keep doing it? Can Bo continue to show growth
Yeah.
and go from there?
Well, Adam Troutman talked about it after the game a little bit when a lot of reporters were asking about how the offense was able to get going. He's like, we've always had a good game plan. We've always had these good plays. We've never been able to extend it because of 3 and outs and those kind of things. So now that we had a chance to showcase it and we got success from those things, it makes you confident. And he gave a lot of credit to Bo by saying, he was never worried. He would always he had such a, and they've said that every single week, that Bo Nix has had such a command of the huddle and talking to guys, whether they're down, whether he throws an interception or not. Like, he's just constantly in the zone with them, and he gave him his flowers by saying, like, to have that mentality come from a rookie. And then he stopped. He was like, a rookie. He's like, I need you guys to understand the magnitude of the credit I'm trying to give our quarterback, where it's, this guy is coming into this team and he's talking to people that have been in the league for a while. He's always talking to some new receivers, but for him to not be shaken by anything, and then now that things are clicking, for them to be like, okay, you've never wavered in your confidence of what we can do on offense. So I think that was a really big, reflection that they've been able to have too after the win.
Yeah, I think the rookie part of it is true, right? And listen, we've seen guys over the last few years have good starts. Like Drew Lock went to Houston in 2019 and played out of his mind, and the Broncos had a really big win. And I think people were like, we're all aboard the Drew Lock train, right? Like, you've still got to do it consistently, and you've got to build on it, and you've got to find ways that, like, Bo Nix is probably at that point still where defensive coordinators are figuring out, how do we want to play him? How do we want to attack him? At some point, they're going to adjust, and you've got to, find a way to adapt to that. So there's nothing's, like, no one's proclaiming that Bo has become, like, the answer, TM, guaranteed, like.
Right.
But that said, people were looking for progress. I've been asking to see steps each week, to see the flashes. You saw all of that. And I think if this team can find out over the next few weeks that Bo is that guy and can play at that level consistently. And then, man, what a turning point this weekend ends up being. And I think maybe you look back at this in a few years, if all goes well, and say, like, that was the weekend that it started. And you first saw what Bo Nix could do, what this team could be capable of with good quarterback play. Because think back to what Sean said in training camp.
Yeah.
When you don't have a quarterback, it puts a ceiling on what everyone else can do.
Yeah.
Cortland Sutton said it in postgame. There are certain things that we go as far as Bo goes. And so if that is kind of the takeaway from this week of, like, hey, for this franchise, this could potentially be a really important turning point in terms of finding out that Bo is kind of who they hoped he is.
Yeah. And like you said, only time can tell, but that rookie word can mean so many things, right? Like Adam Troutman, like, he's a rookie and we're really impressed. It's also like, he's a rookie, be patient. You know, it's a tale of two stories that you have to really remember, like, he is a rookie, so there is growing pains to that. And he is a rookie, so you do get an extra little praise when you do things that third, fourth year quarterbacks are doing. And I think that's something that the team has always been kind of standing on. They've stood on that business.
Yeah, they have. But if you look around the league, like, there's some third, fourth, more than that, quarterbacks that have struggled this year too. And so it's impressive at this point, I think, to find any level of success. He's obviously still searching for that first touchdown pass.
Yep.
We hope that comes here soon. But listen, if they're scoring 26 points a game and let's be clear here, they shut it down a little bit there in the second half. I think this team could have put up 30 for sure on Tampa. They took a knee on their final possession. So if you listen, he doesn't throw that many touchdown passes, but you're scoring 30 a game, they're going to take that. Bo's going to take that every day of the week. But yeah, this is a big win. You got to keep building on it, and just fun to see the guys after. And obviously, you know, we cover the team, but you want to see the team succeed because it's fun for us when they do. And like, there's that photo of Bo sitting there after the game that our team photographer Gabe Christus got. It's just this awesome photo. It looks like it's out of an old magazine or something. And if you haven't seen it, go to the Broncos Twitter and find it. It's cool. Yeah. And you see Bo celebrating. He's like, we put in so much work during the week. There's a lot of film. You got to do work on your body. You've got to, go to practice, lift weight, like all this. And you do it for the 10 minutes after the game where Club Dub, as Sean Payton calls it, where they got the smoke machine going and like there's music playing. And I think it was Jordan Jackson he was live on Instagram, and he's got like a bunch of guys are dancing in there, like, and it's just fun to see. You know, you've got a guy going live on Instagram, and you see a bunch of teammates dancing and they're having fun, and it's like that's what this is all about. And you saw how excited they were, how just kind of what was possible last year during the 5-game winning streak, and you hope they can keep it going, get some more of those winning locker rooms. You know, it's always more fun to win on the road because you get to enjoy it on the flight back, and it'll be fun to watch this team moving forward.
I think one of my favorite parts of yesterday's postgame was Cortland Sutton, right? Because as the Broncos were leaving the field in Tampa Bay, a Go Broncos chant breaks out in the Bucs stadium, and it was all over. Broncos country was there. They were loud, they were proud, and Cortland Sutton really gave you guys your flowers by saying that one of the rookies had looked back and was kind of like, what is happening? He didn't say which rookie, but that he looked and he was like, yeah, that's how it is, and this is what this fan base does for this team. They travel well, they cheer for us. Obviously, despite what happens in the outcome of the game, they're always there to pick us up as we're leaving the field. And those Broncos fans were loud. And those chants broke out a few times during the game, actually.
Yeah, well, the Bucs fans all left.
It was hot.
It was hot.
On the field. I'm just kidding. But I think, like having Broncos country show up on the road in Tampa, it was a very, very hot day. A couple of the guys, they feel like they lost weight on the field, but it was worth it to get the win. And I think having your fans rally around you on the road, being able to get a win, the kind of win that you delivered on Sunday, I think is a really big boost for this team. So before we get out of here, before we end the first altitude advantage on the road here in West Virginia, we are here for the week. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to in terms of what this team is going to do here? Because one of the things that was asked in post game yesterday was, before this was going to be a bonding trip. If you guys lost, but now you won, and the guys are kind of like, yeah, it's going to be fun. They're more excited now.
Yeah, just keep it rolling. I think whatever the schedule's going to be mainly the same as it would be in Denver. You're just trying to take advantage of not, going back and forth on the body clock and having the hours change. Like, you're just going to do your schedule here. I think I saw a quote from DJ Jones that said, like, there's not a lot to do, so you guys all hang out together and you, there's nowhere to go, rather. There's certainly a lot to do.
There's gnome painting.
There's gnome painting, yep, that's true. But listen, I think just lock in and get ready for next Sunday, because the only thing better than one win is getting that second win in a row. And I think you can now, if you're the Broncos, say to yourself, listen, those first 2 weeks, that's a different team. Like, we're this team now, and we can keep it going.
Yeah, and I think being here, away from the noise, you get to bask in the win a little longer. Obviously, you have to move on to the next, like you said, and we'll definitely dive in really deep into that matchup against the Jets on Sunday. That's going to be a fun one at MetLife. But for now, that was Altitude Advantage. I'm your team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. This is your lead writer, Aric DiLalla. And we have to go because we have a gnome painting class that we have to get to.
We got to go.